Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We missed you.
À tous les deux, c'est sur un plan peut-être un petit peu anecdotique, c'est comment on s'y prend pour booker pendant une demi-heure ou peut-être une heure des réalisateurs qui sont accaparés, qui ont des agendas impossibles sur une année, sur 2 années. Est-ce qu'il faut prier la Vierge? Est-ce qu'il faut faire preuve d'opiniâtreté?
Well, I don't know if this is working. Most people we reached out to were really excited to talk about this, and it was a topic they were interested in and had a lot to say about. But, you know, the difficulty was we're asking, you know, very busy, creative people to take time, which was sometimes difficult to schedule, but for the most part, people were available. I think Christopher Nolan
did an interview during his lunch while he was making Batman.
Yeah.
It's lovely of him. But our approach was basically wherever, whenever, however.
Vous étiez prêt à tout, même pour 5 minutes. Parce qu'au départ, Christopher Nolan nous a dit c'est pas possible quoi. Au départ, c'est ça. Sur 1 an, sur 2 ans, son planning n'était pas.
Well, when we first approached Christopher Nolan's people, I said, you know, we'll interview him anywhere on planet Earth, perhaps beyond. To do that. You know, 20 minutes, anytime, let us know. And she said, no, he's busy for the whole year, unavailable for 20 minutes. And then Keanu wrote him typewritten, right? A nice letter explaining, you know, the movie and what we wanted to do, and that swayed him. So nice work.
Idem avec George Lucas, je crois. Où, il vous a accordé 1 heure après des mois et des mois
Yeah, I think George Lucas, you know, he has a very, you know, great team of people around him. And we booked a time. He was happy to talk about it. He had a lot to say. I think originally we maybe booked a half an hour with him, and he had a great conversation with Keanu. It probably went on for an hour or more. We didn't want to take up all his time, but it seemed like he was willing to talk.
It's George Lucas. I mean, for me it was such an honor to get to meet him and to speak with him about this subject, because we eventually, among Chris and I and everybody involved in the film, we were calling him like the Zeus of digital cinema. You know, it was like going to meet Zeus. Yeah, because I mean, you know, he had developed digital editing, digital working in the forefront of digital camera, digital sound, right? I mean, THX, Avid, digital animation. I mean, he really is on that front of Hollywood movie making. He's Zeus.
Keanu, comment vous ont reçu tous ces cinéastes? Est-ce qu'ils ont été surpris par votre démarche? Parce que votre démarche, finalement, c'est presque une démarche de chercheur ou de journaliste spécialisé. Est-ce qu'il n'y en a aucun qui vous a dit, mais est-ce à toi de faire des choses comme ça? Qu'est-ce qui... ou pas?
Like a confrontation, like, what are you doing here? It should be someone from the Lumières. No, I mean, I think there was a kind of not a joy, but an enthusiasm and a passion from everyone that we spoke to speak about it. It was like, I felt like all of these different groups, whether it was editorial, visual effects, music, the camera, cinematographers, directors, actors, they were all having conversations, you know, for 5 color timers, digital intermediate colorists. Everyone was having conversations about, like, the world is changing, what is going on, and I felt like that we were the first people to actually ask, how do you feel? What does this mean? You know, and it felt like that there was, again, just an enthusiasm across the board, and I do think it helped that I had been in movies, you know, for over 20 years. I mean, I think that conversation helped a little bit because it made it more intimate.
Parmi tous les réalisateurs que vous avez rencontrés, Cameron, Fincher, Lucas, Lynch, quel est celui qui vous a semblé le plus porté justement sur cette métamorphose, sur ce passage vers le numérique? Est-ce que par exemple Scorsese, qui est le plus âgé, on va dire, de tous ceux que vous avez interviewés, il est prêt, ou il a déjà fait cette révolution numérique?
I'd say there are probably 3 or 4 or 5 guys who stick out to me the most as really pro-digital, or not really minding if film is gone as long as they have a proper tool to use. And I think David Fincher, Soderbergh, Robert Rodriguez especially, George Lucas is sort of, as you said, the Zeus or the granddaddy of them all. We wouldn't, you know, digital wouldn't be where it is today without him. And then Danny Boyle, you know, there's a lot of great people talking. James Cameron, and Anthony Dodd Mantle for cinematographers.
It's interesting that all of the filmmakers that you just mentioned spoke about, for me it was like David Lynch. I was like, you've made such beautiful photochemical images. Why are you going digital? And for him it was like, I want to have the intimacy, even if it's standard depth, of a video camera. And all of these filmmakers like Rodriguez, Soderbergh, Fincher, Cameron especially, George Lucas, they found some kind of freedom with the numérique that they didn't find with the emotion, you know, and also kind of excited about the frontier of the image. But they all found a kind of mobility, facility, and intimacy that even with 100 years of emotion and the pratique of it was in the way. And so they didn't speak about the loss of the, They didn't speak of the loss of, they didn't speak about like emotion, like, oh my God, you know? They were speaking about the opportunity of this new format and what it allowed them to do as artists.
Vous aviez certainement vu la plupart des films, des réalisateurs que vous êtes allé interviewer. Est-ce que, en discutant avec eux, vous avez pu apprendre des choses, des secrets de fabrication sur ces films, des choses que vous n'aviez pas vues ou perçues en simple spectateur?
I think you probably remember because you were about to go shoot Man of Tai Chi, and I remember afterward, kind of off the record, James Cameron was telling you a little bit kind of a technique, how he shot some of the, you know, fight scenes or action scenes, and you know.
That was Soderbergh.
Was that Soderbergh?
Yeah.
I thought Cameron said, you know, he had the zoom lens, so we'd get one shot and then zoom in and get it closer. You know, everybody told us, you know, some little technique and details and things like that.
Vous avez réalisé il y a peu votre premier film, c'était un film numérique.
Yeah, I did. I worked on the Alexa and studio camera, 4x3 chip, did some anamorphic lenses. Yeah, nice.
What chip?
Shot rock.
You mean the chip again?
4x3.
Mais après les discussions passionnantes que vous avez eues avec tous ces gens-là, la question s'est pas posée de faire un film à la manière traditionnelle, c'est-à-dire en pellicule, en argentique.
Well, I asked to do the film that I directed on photochemical, and the producer said no. But I mean, it's a long conversation. But yeah, of course, it would be great to do that. But for the situation that I had, it was probably better, and I was really happy with what I was able to do.
À court terme, qu'est-ce qui condamne le cinéma argentique, enfin photochimique? Le prix?
I think there's, if it's on the way out, which I think people are still holding on, but I think the future is digital, and I think there's several reasons. It's accessibility and the cost of shooting digital, especially for lower budget movies, is less expensive. Younger people have access to it. You get to see what you're shooting while you're shooting it. It's kind of easier to edit digitally. I'd say cost and ease of use, and now the actual quality of the image, it just continues to improve.
Dans votre filmographie, on trouve un certain nombre de grands succès populaires. Le plus marquant étant sans doute, pour moi, pas que pour moi, la trilogie Matrix. Si aujourd'hui ce film devait être fait avec la technologie d'aujourd'hui, il serait foncièrement différent de celui que les frères Wachowski avaient réalisé en 99.
I don't know, if I'm thinking back on like where a digital camera would have impact, where we were using, I think they were using the area, was it the 435? I think they were using that camera. Aeroflex. I mean, at that time, even then, everything was being digitized. Once you shot it, everything was getting telecine and scanned going into it. All the visual effects were being digitized. The first incarnation shot that I did in bullet time was with still cameras. When the character Neo was back, it's like, I forget how many cameras, but it was like it was digital still cameras. So I guess we would have had longer takes, and at that time too, I'm sure that the texture of the movie would have been different. Probably just the texture of it.
Vous posez aussi la question de la 3D. Et il semble que ce qui sort, c'est que la 3D ne serait peut-être que, pas un avatar, mais un gadget en tout cas. Ou en tout cas, oui, un gadget. Que peut-être la 3D, en dépit du développement du numérique, n'est pas appelée à durer. Vous avez senti ça ou pas?
I don't know if that can be true. It keeps hanging in there. 3D's been around a long time. It keeps hanging out. And I think, perhaps when we look back at 3D, we'll think of it as maybe a stepping stone to VR.
Alors, la 3D semble perdurer quand même, et peut-être un jour, quand on reverra l'histoire, on se dira que c'était une étape vers la réalité virtuelle.
That all of this propulsion and this because it doesn't go away. And there's a lot of, a lot of creators and storytellers are going to want to use that format. Even in the side-by-side, Scorsese speaks about like how it becomes, you can move within it. You know, it becomes, I worked in a film called 47 Ronin, and there was an interesting kind of proscenium aspect where you can enter in. And I really just made this up right now, but I think that 3D is going to be the stepping stone into how we think about virtual reality technologies and how we tell stories in them. I think so. I think that whole idea, and then once you start to go into here, it's going to be, we're going to be like, oh, that's what that was. In a way, 3D is almost like this, like the way that it's been used, sensationalized in the beginning with like, "Roar!" Like, it's almost like, you know, you have this technology, but you don't know how to understand it. It's like almost with cinema, like the first kind of thing that they were doing was like, does the horse have all of its feet in the air? Or like, here's the train that goes by. You know, these kind of action-oriented kind of events. And, you know, there's almost 3D is almost this kind of impulse as it's developing and beginning sophistication toward intimacy and experience that is seeking in a way to break down the fourth wall or that barrier, but that's actually going to be the stepping into an even more immersive dream.
Des questions?
So, more than 10 years after The Matrix, you are making a documentary on the impact of the digital in the movie industry, and you are very interested by the technology, by the directing, and you are also making a martial arts movie. So it seems like you were very influenced by the experience. And what did you learn on that as an actor, as a director, and as a person?
Yeah, yes, that experience changed my life and impacted everything that you're talking about. You know, anything that happens, it's hard to say, well, what comes next, what would have happened if that didn't happen. But certainly, working on the Matrix trilogy has influenced me as an artist and me as a person, but not as a singer.
Le Festival Lumières est aussi un festival de rétrospective et d'hommage. S'il devait rendre hommage à Keanu Reeves, si le festival devait rendre hommage à Keanu Reeves, quels sont les 2 ou 3 films qu'il choisirait pour sa rétrospective et quels sont les 2 ou 3 qu'il ne choisirait pas?
Okay, today I'm going to pick from the 80s, let's do River's Edge. From the 90s, gosh, there's a lot. 2000s, let's do A Scanner Darkly. 90s, maybe we need a couple in there. So let's do some action. Point Break or Speed? Let's do Point Break. And let's do The Devil's Advocate. And then let's do Bill and Ted? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's friends. Bill and Ted. And throw a little Buddha in there. And then... Oh yeah, The Matrix.
Then you have to give the ones you wouldn't put it.
Huh? Oh, what I wouldn't put in there? What I wouldn't put in there.
Ne mettrai pas. Partie difficile de la question.
The only film I wouldn't put in there is called The Watcher.
Alors aujourd'hui aux États-Unis, pour la grande majorité, dans les écoles de cinéma, les élèves n'utilisent plus d'argentique, de pellicule, 35, 16, super vite. Et donc à Hollywood aussi, l'argentique est en déclin. Et puis bien sûr, il y a la mort des labos. Et puis aujourd'hui, les producteurs de pellicules, parce qu'il y a des volumes beaucoup plus bas, doivent augmenter les prix, donc il y a cet effet aussi. Christopher Nolan fait partie des gens qui veulent protéger l'argentique, qui disent qu'il faut le garder et que c'est un patrimoine. Et il y a certains étudiants qui disent aussi qu'ils veulent utiliser cette matière. Cela dit, pendant le film, Tom Rothman de la Fox a dit qu'il y avait 5 ans encore pour l'argentique, et donc ça fait quelques années, donc il reste peut-être 1 ou 2 ans. Et Autre aspect, c'est la projection aujourd'hui qui, aux États-Unis, 70 à 80% des salles sont en numérique. C'est probablement le cas aussi de plus en plus en France.
Vous proposez un très beau travail d'investigation, très intéressant, dans lequel Keanu, vous entrez dans le rôle d'un enquêteur. J'aurais aimé savoir quelle était votre curiosité de la technique sur les différents tournages en tant qu'acteur sur lesquels vous avez participé.
In the past 5 years, probably more than I ever have. But ultimately, if I'm just acting in it, then I wouldn't have a technical input. I'll ask the question, but almost like, because I can't help myself. So we shoot digital or film? What are you doing? What lenses are you using? What are we doing? And in some way, the answers inform me to the tone and to the way that the filmmakers thinking about making a movie. 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I wouldn't have that conversation, have insight into what the tone was. I did a film with Courtney Hunt recently, and just talking to her and Jules, the cinematographer, was like, we were using these certain kinds of lenses that had a certain look to them, and I looked at the test and I was like, oh, that's what we're doing, So it's just another way to learn in a way, but no influence.
Donc depuis 5 ans, évidemment, beaucoup plus. Alors bien sûr, quand je suis là uniquement en tant que comédien, en tant qu'acteur, je n'ai pas du tout de contribution technique à faire, mais je pose des questions aux techniciens, l'objectif qu'ils utilisent et tout ça. Mais ce qui me semble important, c'est le ton qu'essaye de trouver le cinéaste. Et donc, il y a des... donc avec Courtney Hunt, Frozen River, et le directeur de photo, Jules, le directeur de photo, j'ai eu des discussions avec eux et j'ai vu toute une série de techniques, de filtres, d'objectifs qu'ils utilisaient. Et donc voilà, c'est toujours une source d'apprentissage.
Alors les questions, les nouveaux projets, les nouveaux films, et votre liberté dans la vie, vous continuez à être libre comme le vent, vous traversez les villes en moto, comment ça se passe?
Yeah, I do. Yes, it's a great way to travel, a motorcycle. You get a sense of, the speed of it. You can either, if you're going through the city, you can go slow, you can go fast. You get to smell the city, you get to see everything. You have a kind of connection. That day in Moscow was very special for me, and so I feel like I can still do that. Yeah. Why not? And what was the first part of that?
It's a rambling question. I can't help you. That was also like the responsibility when you make this kind of.
Yeah, it was very personal, so to make side by side for me. And so for me, I was just really grateful that other artists and people, and even Chris saying, okay, yeah, let's go make this picture and let's go try and do this. I just felt grateful and it was cool, and talk to filmmakers and people whose work you love so much, so I felt very lucky.
I think we're all grateful because, if Keanu was not involved in this movie, I don't think we would have been able to reach, some of the people who we really wanted to hear from, and I think who the audience wants to hear from. And also, Keanu did a great job interviewing people, keeping them relaxed and making it conversational. And then also, you being involved allowed people to hear about it. I think that maybe you wouldn't have if you weren't in it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Et les nouveaux projets? Pour les fins.
Et John Wick, c'est ça?
Yeah, John Wick is coming out, which is fantastic. and which I'm really looking forward to. I hope people enjoy it. It's some action, but another world is very good. And thank you for asking. And I recently worked with, again, Courtney Hunt on a picture called The Whole Truth, and I worked with Eli Roth on a home invasion movie called Knock Knock. Eli Roth.
Donc voilà, John Wick va sortir très bientôt, c'est fantastique, c'est un film d'action effectivement, mais il y a quelque chose de plus. Et puis j'ai aussi fait un film récemment avec Courtney Hunt, et puis un film On tape à la porte d'Eli Roth.
Merci beaucoup.